those guys could be there. I mean, Aaron Rodgers was, what pick was he? He slipped all the way to the bottom of the first round.
Yeah, it's not out of the
Right?
question.
He was supposed to be a high pick, and he went.
He was like 32nd, I want to
way
say.
late.
Yeah, he was at the bottom of the first
30s.
round.
I don't think he got to the second round, but he was way down.
He was
there.
at the bottom of the
first round.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think a C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young will slip to number 11, but there's a possibility that Richardson slips.
Levis and Richardson.
Yeah, that far. And I don't think the Titans are into another project. Not on the first round. They're not in regards to Anthony Richardson. You're not gonna. If I'm drafting a quarterback at the 11th pick, it's not a project guy. Like, okay, he has all the physical tools, but it's going to take him a few years to get up to speed as far as playing quarterback in the NFL. No, I'm not drafting that guy at the 11th pick. If I'm drafting somebody at the 11th pick and it's a quarterback, it's a guy that needs to come in that can play this year if we need him to play. So if Richardson slips to 11th, I can't see the Titans taking him because to me that's another project.
It totally depends on the board.
Yeah, you're right.
Like if the Titans on their board, if the Titans view Anthony Richardson as making it a fifth best prospect in the draft, and Anthony Richardson falls to the Titans at 11, what a bargain! You get what you think is the fifth best player in this draft at 11. You take him. But if Anthony Richardson falls to you at 11, but you have him mocked as like the 35th best player in the draft, just because he's there and just because he's a quarterback, you don't take him. I think it totally depends on the board. I would be shocked, Willie, to your point. I'd be shocked if there was a quarterback like a Bryce Young or a C.J. Stroud, whoever it might be, that falls to 11 simply because this is such a quarterback-needy NFL. And I know like the Chiefs draft, traded up to get Patrick Mahomes at 10. If you could get a Patrick Mahomes at 10, I think the Titans would be in great shape. But I think also looking at how needy of a quarterback NFL it is right now, I'd be shocked. Like I think, if you're let's say the Indianapolis Colts, you need a quarterback. You got to take a quarterback in the first round. They're ready to take a quarterback. They're ready to find their next Peyton Manning, their next Andrew Luck. So I think that the Colts would take whoever's there. The Titans are in a great position right now where they don't have to just take whatever quarterback is there.
I think the mistake a lot of teams make is to just go grab a quarterback because you need a quarterback.
Just because you need one.
I think that, let's look at, you got me curious with Aaron Rodgers. So 2005, he was 24th. And there was so much talk before the draft of Alex Smith, Aaron Rodgers could go 1 and 2, right? And what's crazy is that's the year that, and I forgot this. This was the year that the Titans picked Pac-Man Jones. Picked Pac-Man Jones with the 6th pick. And so they, in theory, they could have had Aaron Rodgers right there. But 23 teams passed on him. The pick right after Aaron Rodgers was Jason Campbell, who ended up being a okay quarterback in the league for quite a long time, but he was never a star, of course. But it just looks, when you look at year after year drafts, it's always a hindsight is 2020 sort of thing. But it's really interesting to watch the dynamics of the quarterbacks and you try to remember what was the talk before the draft. And we could find some drafts where the quarterbacks rocketed up the board, but it didn't mean the teams were right that decided to throw their chips on the table, go grab the quarterback just because, quote, they needed a quarterback.
I think right now what NFL teams are doing, and I think they do this every year with quarterbacks, especially when there's more than 2 quarterbacks coming out that can potentially be top 5, top 10 picks. I think they try to find reasons why not to draft the guy. Rather than, because we know why. If you're a top 5, top 10 pick, we know why we should draft you.
Right.
We've seen the film. You've checked we got 100 boxes. You've checked 90-something of those boxes. So I know for the most part what I'm getting or why I want to draft you. I'm looking at why shouldn't I draft you. So when you're talking about a Bryce Young, well, it's his height and his weight potentially. Okay, you're talking about Anthony Richardson. Well, this kid hadn't played enough football hadn't played enough football at the quarterback position. He's been inaccurate sometimes. You look at Will Levis. Well, his junior season was better than his senior season. And was that because he didn't have the weapons? And if he didn't have weapons, which means can he not make people around him better? But the more and more I look at it, the one guy that doesn't have many questions or many reasons, and I still like Bryce Young. I think Bryce Young should be the number one pick. But the more and more I look at it, C.J. Stroud is the one guy that you look at and you can't find really anything that will deter you from drafting him. Not his height, not his weight, not his accuracy, not his throwing strength. Oh, how he played against Michigan in Northwestern and Michigan last year. They lost to Michigan last year. So you're trying to pick at reasons why you shouldn't draft him. And the more and more I'm looking at this, even though I still believe Bryce Young is the best quarterback, C.J. Stroud at this point has the least questions about him than the other quarterbacks do.
I would say that's probably fair.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does C.J. Stroud have as much of an upside as Anthony Richardson has, as Bryce Young might have? Probably not. But that's what you have to weigh when you're making your board, when you're making those really difficult decisions. Do we trade up? Do we wait until they fall to us? Do we stay at 11 and just take whatever the best player is on our board? Do we draft for a position of need? That's what you have to think about. Do we take the maybe not as much of a huge upside, but definitely not as much of a big downside? That's what you have to weigh. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll get into your phones. We've been neglecting the phones this hour, so we'll get into some of your texts. Plus, 16 minutes until the NHL trade deadline. Are the Preds done? We'll get into that coming up next. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Every Wednesday at noon.
That fits the mentality of what they're going to do.
Outkick 360's Jonathan Hutton joins Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase to talk all things Titans and NFL.
Much more creative in how you go about calling certain plays.
He's got opinions and insights on the two-tone blue.
That doesn't mean that you can't have great or don't need great quarterback play.
Catch Hutton every Wednesday at noon on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Okay, time to tell you about Lee Company. You've got 567-1000, your phone number, area code 615. Now, look, the weather is not good in Nashville right now, and I know a lot of you probably have the furthest thing from your mind about your air conditioning unit, things like that. But, you know, when you have a storm, it does make you think about your house and the well-being of your house. So down the road, always have in the back of your mind that Lee Company's available to you. If you got trees down in your yard, you got a fence that, you know, didn't hold up to the wind, things like that, that's where you can always call Lee Company. They've got that department for you. 615-567-1000. You can always go to leecompany.com, and they are ready to serve you. And always keep in mind the home maintenance plan for your year-round coverage. It's outstanding. We use it in our household as well. 615-567-1000. or leecompany.com. They're a proud sponsor of the Nashville Predators. This long odyssey of a road trip continues here in Chicago tomorrow night against the Chicago Blackhawks. So they will be, of course, the title sponsor of our pregame coverage, which starts an hour before game time for every game, which we wrap up the trade deadline, or that any deadline moves to be made in the next 15 minutes. Doesn't look like it, but you never know. It's Lee Company, 615-567-1000 or leecompany.com.
Al Gill here from my friends at Dunkin'. Warm up and feel the love with Dunkin'. Treat yourself and a loved one to a brown butter toffee hot or iced latte, which is superb paired with the bacon avocado tomato sandwich. Be sure to try the all-new stuffed biscuit bites. It's a warm biscuit dough wrapped around a mixture of bacon, scrambled egg, and cheddar cheese. Visit us at our newly remodeled Dunkin' on Briley Parkway in Nashville, or the new Dunkin' in Mount Juliet, and our other locations throughout Middle Tennessee. Price and participation may vary. Limited time offer. Terms apply.
Finding great people to hire is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. It's pretty difficult, right? Well, ZipRecruiter has mastered finding a needle in a haystack, so they take it to the next level. They make hiring so simple that it's like finding a needle in a needle stack. And that's why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. Here's what it's like to use ZipRecruiter. They have so many qualified candidates that it's easier to find the right ones for your roles. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. That's a lot of needles. So how do they do it? ZipRecruiter's powerful technology sends you candidates who are a great match for your job, and you can even invite your top choices to apply. So if you want less hay and more needles, head to ZipRecruiter.
And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. That's ZipRecruiter.com/RADIO. ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
They're insightful.
To me, you got a left guard situation you got to figure out.
Credible.
I trust this guy more than this guy.
But sometimes they just argue.
Why do you like the NFL playoffs? Those teams lose
I
6,
don't
7
want
games.
college football to be the NFL.
When they get...
Robbie Stanley and Joe Rexroad are Robbie and Rexroad. Weekdays from 6 to 9 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. This is Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
If there's someone they like on that team, just call and they'll tell you what they're thinking. So I think the way that you've traded a lot of really good pieces already, aside from Fabro or maybe a McDonough who has a no trade clause. I think everybody knows. I don't know what would be at the top end still remaining necessarily, but everybody knows if they see someone on Nashville they like, call the Predators because they're willing to listen, except for on 3 guys really.
There you go. That was Elliot Friedman on the show yesterday, and I think that he's right. If this past week has indicated anything about the Predators' willingness to sell at the trade deadline, just pick up the phone. They could be willing to do a deal. No, we are 10 minutes.
Well, they better pick up the phone in 11 minutes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. And we've got 11
they can't
minutes.
call after 11 minutes. We got 11 minutes.
Got 11 minutes until the NHL trade deadline. So it's already been announced that David Poile will speak to the media at 3 o'clock. I think that's the indication that the Predators are done. That there's probably no moves left to be made in the wee few minutes left of the NHL trade deadline.
Yeah, it's looking unlikely. I don't know that, I get warning, every year that something's happening, but you can feel it a lot of times. You can look at the Elliot Friedmans and the ones that really have the pulse minute by minute. For example, Elliot just reported a trade and then had to report a minute or two later that the trade is off. James Van Riemsdyk from the Flyers to the Red Wings. And then it was on and then it was off. So he is up to the second what's going on. There just doesn't seem to be anything brewing about some guys. So it's interesting on a couple of fronts. The 2 guys we talked about a lot at the beginning of the show, guys, Dante Fabro and Kevin Lankinen. Mm-hmm. And so nothing yet. And there's been a lot of role players like that have changed teams today. So now we're down to 10 minutes. Can't rule anything out because sometimes it goes well beyond 2 o'clock by the time the league gets the trade call. All you have to do is have the email in by 2 o'clock. And then sometimes it doesn't get announced until after the deadline. We know how that works sometimes. But I'm not sensing, and this tells me that the injury to Alex Carrier could be significant for them to hold on to Dante Fabro. I think they were definitely shopping him around, but he may have a great opportunity now to play a big role down the stretch. And then Lankinen is another guy, as we said. Elliott yesterday talked about the goalie market isn't great right now for the sellers, and so they may elect to just hold on to Kevin Lankinen for the rest of the season. But like we said, still 9 minutes to go, and you never know if somebody's desperate in the final minutes. Sometimes that's when you get the best deal. It was literally the last couple of minutes that Nashville years ago got the offer for Philip Forsberg in the Martin Erat deal.
And to the
that
point
was
about
last minute.
Yeah. And to the point about Dante Fabro, it could be one. The injury to Carrier, you got to hold on to some defensemen. You can't just sell them all. You still need to play with some guys on the ice. And 2, there may just maybe not have been a market for Dante Fabro. To your point, I don't think it goes without trying from David Poile and the Predators organization, but it's just either wasn't the market for it, or you look at it and it's not smart to deal him at the moment, considering that we are dwindling down numbers in defensemen. And I also think it's interesting. I feel like in years past, and you do correct me if you think I'm wrong, I always felt like in years past, Friday was always so crazy. In the last few minutes, like the Martin Erat trade, like you mentioned, Willie, it always came down to the very last second. With the Predators and with the NHL as a whole, I feel like so many things happened throughout the week that today has been pretty quiet.
Yeah, it has.
Yeah,
been.
a lot of role players. A lot of role players today because the big ones had already sort of moved. It was interesting this year. Like you said, Carolina, it wasn't like a big whirlwind on the day of the deadline. It was really a week or a week and a half of steady deals throughout the league. And, of course, Nashville was at the center of it with, what was it, four trades in 6 days. So they spread it out. Can you imagine if all 4 of those guys got traded today? What that would be like? Holy cow.
Man.
So it was spread out. So, like I saw that the Wild are wheeling and dealing. For those that follow them and follow the rivals of the Predators closely, they traded Jordan Greenway, who at one point looked like he was going to be, a core player for them. He's got term on his contract. They traded him away. They brought in Oscar Sundqvist. So there's been some wheeling and dealing. The Sabres, who probably needed a little size and toughness, they picked up Greenway. But those are the kind of deals that we've seen today. No superstars have changed hands today.
Let's go to your phones. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. I know you have some Predators trade deadline thoughts. Tom in Nashville texts in and says the Predators should trade Saros. Saros' value will never be higher. Top goalie, term on deal, low average. If you wait and Saros has a year left or just the 1 year left, the value goes down. And you aren't re-signing Saros at what could be $8 to $10 million. And why re-sign at that when Askarov could be cheaper and controlled? I don't think it's going to happen in the next 7 minutes.
You never know, but I disagree that his value will go down. I don't believe that's true. I think if you're a premier goalie and you're 29, you still have a lot of value. And I don't think Askarov is a sure thing. I don't know that there is such a thing as a goalie at 20 being a sure thing, although I'm really excited about that kid's future. He just keeps doing it, and the more I learn about him, the more I like him. But there's a lot of refining that has to happen. I just think there's going to be a time where you have a very, hopefully, a great choice to be made. Keep Saros, and like the caller mentioned, I do agree that he will become very much more expensive in the next contract. Keep him, or trade him at that time, and Askarov will be then, in theory, ready to help your team. He'll still only be 22. It's not like he's going to be, 29 at that point. He's so young.
One texter texted in and said, do you think the Predators tried to trade Tyson Barrie and flip him before the trade deadline?
I don't think so because they need defensemen right now. And I think next year, Tyson Barrie would be a very good asset that you could trade at the deadline to somebody because Tyson Barrie has a very defined skill set. He is an excellent power play quarterback. He's an offensive defenseman. He's not a guy that you want to put in your top pair. He's not a shutdown guy per se, but he's a great team guy, and I do think he will be a valuable trade asset next year. I don't think he's as valuable this year. Why? Because he's $4.3 million, I think, 4.3 against the cap next year. And so when he's a unrestricted free agent coming up, I think he'd have more value there. And he'll be useful to the team down the stretch here. We talked about it. There's still 20-something games left. You want to play meaningful games if you can, and he would help them do that.
And some news coming out. Did Luke Evangelista just get re-signed?
I don't think so. He's on his entry-level contract, so I don't see why he would be.
Reassigned.
Reassigned? No.
We misread that. Reassigned.
Well, what they do. Remember what happens is, when you can have a paper transaction where a guy is assigned to Milwaukee and then reassigned to that. He'll be in the lineup tomorrow. I promise you. He's not going anywhere.
Reporter Nick was inquiring about Luke Evangelista.
They do that. They've been doing this with a lot of players. If you notice, they send them to Milwaukee on paper, and then reassign them to the Predators. They don't go anywhere. Evangelista will be in there tomorrow.
Be a pretty whiplash heading from Milwaukee to Nashville as much as they're re-signed and then called back up. David Poyle will speak with the media in just about 1 hour. I'm sure we will play that live, get his thoughts on the trade deadline, the week of craziness of the Nashville Predators moving forward, what this team looks like, what the next few months look like as Barry Trotz transitions into the full-time general manager role. That's going to do it for us today. Everybody have a great weekend. Stay safe. The storms sound pretty brutal out there. Stillman & Company is up next. We'll be back Monday at 11.
Peace.
Have a great day, guys. Enjoy the sunshine.
All the big plays.
Ball right to score. Yoshi sets up Matt Duchene.
All the big stories.
For the Predators, are you holding on to what you got, or are you selling some guys off?
All in one place.